Good morning, everyone. Happy October. Welcome all of you joining today's class, How to Price a Development, the Project and Assets Land Value. I'm Pauline Lam from Kota Realty, your 2020 Co-Chair Education Committee. Before the meeting starts, all the participants will be muted. Should you have any questions, please enter it into the chat box. Speaker will answer you during the Q&A section. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, West and Gable Valley Realtors. Now I would like to have our Mr. Wei-Ming Lee, Education Committee member, to introduce you our special speaker, Mr. Vincent Zhou. Hey, Mr. Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pauline. Good morning, everybody. I hope all of you guys can see this young man popping up on the screen, Vincent Chow. He's a distinguished developer, builder, and entrepreneur. Vincent has worked in multiple sectors of the real estate industry, ranging from residential and commercial development, brokerage, land entitlement, to project management and financing. It makes me really feel ashamed that such a young man had done so much more than an older man like me. Prior to Signature Builder, of whom Vincent is the CEO, Vincent has spent 5 years in the finance sector as vice president at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, managing RMBS and CMBS trading portfolio over 500 million US dollars. So you can tell that Vincent has a lot of experience also in the finance areas. Vincent received his bachelor's degree from Cornell University in electrical and computer engineering. What a brain he has got. With a double minor in finance and economy. So he also knows how to manage money. My goodness. He has served as a board member for the San Gabriel Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Cornell Asian Alumni Association. I look forward to this young man teaching us something. Vincent, the floor is yours now. I look forward to the workshop.
Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me all right, Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, everybody. Very honored to be here today. I am here just to share my knowledge with all of you guys. I am a real estate developer and a general contractor builder as well. So my background, I kind of started as a real estate broker as well, back in New York and here in Los Angeles, mostly on the commercial side. And me and my previous work experience that we have done shopping centers, we have done office buildings. Right now, I'm focused a lot more on residentials. Either it is a tract home build, kind of like what Lennar, Shea Homes, Williams Line, those big players do. You know, we take a piece of land, sometimes tune it into 200, 300, sometimes smaller, 30, 40, 10 homes, right? And we build the infrastructure on the land, and then we will go ahead and finish the entire build, you know, building the houses, and then we'll sell them. So it's a new project developer doing new homes, new constructions. So some of the projects are bigger, 200. My San Jacinto are about 300, 200 units. Harupa Valley, almost 250 units. And some of them are smaller. You know, I have a project in Pomona that is only 7 units, which today I'll be using as an example. Whatever size your project is, I think a lot of the question, you know, coming from a real estate broker background is how do you price a land, right? So if you have a client that's saying, hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing a project here in Los Angeles, right? Whether, you know, they have experience or they don't have experience, they wanted to see, I find a piece of land, how much is that land worth, right? So that is what we're trying to do today. We're trying to see how much each land is, and not just because we're seeing that on the MLS and say, well, they're looking for $1.3 million for that piece of land. But how do you come to that number? How do you know what a raw piece of land is worth? All right, so that's what we're going to try to explore today. And I have kind of like a project that we can look at it as a real-time, real-life example. And also we'll be kind of doing Excel format, kind of just derive all the numbers from the scratch. And to be honest, I thought this meeting was later today. So I was going to take some time to put together a PPT and an entire worksheet during the day. But I just realized it's happening now. So what you guys get to see actually in a very, very good way is I don't have anything prepared. So we're going to start with a blank sheet of Excel sheet and then look at a floor plan and look at a site plan and really do this from the scratch. And you might see me doing some mistakes, going back and forth, but that's part of the process. And there's a check and balance, right? You kind of check yourself whether you forgot something. So you guys get to see the raw format of how a real estate developer or a builder go into a project that they have never seen. And they're going to see how much they can pay for the land and what is the risk and how do they mitigate that risk and what are the things that you need to watch out for during the due diligence period. So I will kind of be talking all about it as the process, that the exercise moves forward. So I have two chat messages. Good morning. Okay, that's one. All right, so let's jump into it. Can you share my screen? Is there a way I can share my screen? Let me do a screen share. Does everybody see my screen? Mr. Lee, do you?
We can see
Okay.
it.
Okay, you can see it. All right, great. So, for example, this is a project I'm currently working on, right? Assuming we don't know how much the land is worth. So we're throwing this project. A broker pitched it to us. They said, hey, look, I have a 7-unit project in Pomona. How much would you like to pay for this land? How much would you want to buy it from me? So a couple questions off the bat, right? Do we have any entitlement on the land? Let me quickly kind of go over what entitlement is. I want to take 5 minutes, couple minutes to go over that. A piece of land, you can build literally anything on it. You can build a warehouse, you can build residential homes, you can build a mansion, you can build a movie theater, right? You can build anything you want on it. But you cannot, because the government regulates what you can build on each piece of land. So with that said, your land has to have the correct zoning and has to have the correct entitlement. Okay, that's what the entitlement is. You submit an application telling the city and the surrounding neighbors what do you want to do on this piece of land. That's called entitlement. So this piece of land is one parcel and they wanted to build 7 units on it. When the broker pitched it to us, they already have entitlement, meaning they already went to the city and the city, through a process of reviews, allowed them to do 7-unit detached residence project. Okay, we can call it SFR, single family residence. Okay, so when the broker came to us with this project, it was already agreed by the city that 7-unit single families are going to be structured on this property. Now, the first thing I usually go to is the site plan. Okay, so this is the site plan. So you go in there, you have unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got 7 unit. This is pretty much an infill, meaning it's not a big project in the middle of nowhere, right? There are houses around it, on top of it, on the bottom of it, on the left, around that neighborhood. There's houses all around it. So all you have to do for this project is pretty much build the infrastructure, which is very little along the street. You grade the entire site. You build the houses to it. And that's it. Okay, this is the extremely simple version of how the construction works. But for this today's discussion, that's all we kind of need to take into account. We're grading the land. We're building the house, and that's pretty much it. Okay. So now 7 homes. 7 homes, and let's start with the let's start a new blank Excel sheet. Okay, let me see if I probably need to share that one. Give me one quick second. Let me see how the screen sharing works. Okay, so stop sharing this one. Let me share a different screen. I'll just share my screen actually. Okay, so now you get to see my entire screen. Okay, let's start with a blank sheet of paper. Now, the first thing you want to do, especially if you're a real estate broker, you want to start with something that you know, okay? And in most cases, is the home selling price, okay? Selling price. Now, there's 7 of them, okay? Assuming you're familiar with Pomona and you say, hey, you know, I think the project, each floor, each unit, you want to look at the size of the unit. Let me see right here. If you look at it, total living area, right? So unit 1, 2,400 almost. Unit 2, 3, 4, about 2,000. So on average, I would say this is about 2,000. I'll just use the medium number, about 2,050 square foot, right? You can use the estimate number for now. So you wanted to do some basic input. Number of unit is 7. Square foot per unit, I can't type today, is assuming is this. Okay, that's a very rough estimate. We'll move that down. Now you do total square foot, which is 7 multiplied by that. So that is how much of a house you're building. Okay, so you're building 7 homes, 2,050 square foot each. So you're building total 14,000 square foot. Okay, now let's do the selling price. Let's start with something. This method, we're kind of backing up the land price. Okay, so assuming each unit you can sell for 550,000. Assuming that is the price that you can sell each home for, then your total selling price will be that multiplied by 7. So that is how much you're gonna get by selling the homes, right? If you sold all 7 homes, that's a good place to start. Now let's go to the next level. Well, the first thing you do, you kind of wanted to switch gears, right? You wanted to switch to, if you're the developer, what is the first thing that you need to do? Well, the first thing you need to do is, are there any demolition? Is there existing house on it? This piece of land happened to be none. So, you put a 0 to it. So right now we're just working with pricings right now. Okay, so now after you demoed it, what do? You grade it, you do site improvement. I'm just gonna list a couple of the big categories that we need to do to get the land to the condition where you can start building houses. This is gonna be under the big category called site improvement. So now, first one is grading, right? You have to grade it, and then you have wet utility. That is your sewage main connection, water main connection, your storm drains and all that stuff, right? You have to build a road, pavings, and you have to do the curb and gutters and the sidewalks, curb and sidewalks. So those are the main thing of a land, and there's a couple many different things. I'm just going to call those miscellaneous, etc, etc. Okay, now under this, let's say, a lot of this is going to be from experience, but today I think what they're trying to do is establish a process of how do you derive the land price, right? So I'm not going to go into the details of how to price grading, how to price wet utilities, how to price paving. Very general, the way that I do it is by looking at the site plan, do a lot of quantitative takeoffs, right? You can do measurements, you can do measure, and you can do square foot and how big each things are, and they will tell you this is 819 square foot, right? So you measure that to the correct scales, and then you assess a monetary value to, let's say, you're paving 10,000 square foot, and how much is per square foot to pave, and that you came out with a number. So taking from my already established pricing from the Pomona 7, we know the rough grading right here is about 45,000. Wet utilities, we end up spending 175,000. Pavings and everything else, concrete driveways, kind of add those together, is about 90,000. I'm going to use very rough numbers today. And curb and sidewalk, we end up spending $20,000. Okay, etc. There's a couple more, just management, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you have to fix the little things that are broken along the way, bring the metal place. I will say another 10,000 to it. Okay, so that will be your on-site cost to get the land to the level you can start building houses. There's two ways of doing this. You always need to have a contingency. Usually we do a 10%, but the way I like to do it is, instead of breaking down the contingency for each category, I like to do that at the very, very end and just add a 10% in case something happens. Okay, so this is site improvement, and I'll do a total. So your total site improvement right here is $340,000. And my computer is crashing a little bit. Give me 1 second. Okay, so that is your site improvement. Okay, now after your site improvement, what do you need to do? So you need to build the houses, right? Another word for site improvement, I'm going to label it here. It's called horizontal, meaning, right, because your pipes and everything out the street, that goes horizontal. And then your vertical is your houses, right? Your foundation, framing, roof, that goes vertical, goes up. So your vertical is your cost of actually building the houses. Now, the quantity of the vertical is the total square foot of your houses, which in your case is the total sellable square foot. The garages is not counted towards the total sellable square foot. So when we price verticals, we don't usually take into account into the garage, as long as it is a traditional 2-car garages. So this is your vertical cost price per square foot. Is usually we use, for this kind of project, if we look at this, the way you want to think about this, and there's a lot of experience that go into this. I would say this is the most part, the part that takes the most experience. First of all, you want to think about the location of the project. This is in Pomona, right? You want to look at the surroundings. How much are your houses in the surrounding areas? A 10-year-old house will be selling about right under $500,000. You add about 15% premium for the new house. So your houses are selling about $550,000 to $600,000 at 2,000 square foot. I would say those houses are either entry-level homes for this area, or a slight move uppers from people locating to this area. So this is not a luxury multi-million-dollar homes, right? But this is also not a cheap home. It's not a $200,000 rundown home that you go in and you remodel. So with that said, the vanities, the materials, and all the design and all the materials that you use in the houses are going to be at the entry level, right? You get granite countertops, you get some self-closing cabinets. You most likely have a built-in prefab shower combo instead of a tiled shower. So taking all that into account, based on my experience, I would say per square foot cost of actually building the home, you're right about $90 per square foot. Okay, this is only the vertical section. Okay, it's not including doing any of the street, none of those. Let me turn off my. So that do not bother. Okay, so let's say this is $90. Okay, now how much does it take for you to build all 7 homes? Then that's easy. Use $90, multiply by your total square footage. It will cost you $1.3 million to build a home. Okay, that's a very important number because number one, that's a very, very big number. And number two, that is how much it takes for you to build a home. Okay, now after you build a home, there's a bunch of other things that you need to pay before you can sell the houses. And number one of them is the fees, the city fees. Okay, that including school fees, water meter, and city. Okay, so you got 3 large fees that you have to pay. I would say usually the city fee is about $15,000, school fees maybe around $10,000, and water meter in that area depends on which water department that you're dealing with. I would say about $15,000. Okay, so total fees. It's about $40,000 worth of fees that you have to pay the city before they give you the final certificate of occupancy, before you can have somebody move in, right? So that is something you have to pay. Okay, now your hard cost is right here. When you build the houses, if you're going to build yourself, then that's fine. But most of the time, you have to hire a general contractor to do it for you. So I would add an item called GC, general contractor fee. Okay, general contractor usually will, for this kind of stuff, because it's small, usually they will charge about 15% of your the cost of your production, the cost of your build. So let's say we're charging at 15%. Then it will be sum of those two numbers multiply by the 15%. So you'll be paying the general contractor $244,000 to build this for you, okay? Now, let me just get rid of those blank space. So you pay the general contractor, you have your vertical cost, you pay the city, and what else do you have to pay? You have to pay sales, right? So you guys, whoever is selling it or whoever brings in the client needs to make money, right? So let's say 7 units, and your total selling price is this. Let's say you're doing let's be generous. I like to be generous to brokers. Let's do a 6% commission split. Okay, so your sales cost, that will be your total sales price multiplied by that. So you're paying $231,000 to brokers. And what about advertising, ad and marketing? You know, 7 homes. I like to look at this by how many homes. Each homes I'm going to spend about, I'll say $1,000. Then that'll give you $7,000 for marketing. So equals to 1,000 multiply by 7. So you spend $7,000 on advertising, and then you have your escrow fees and the closing. This is actually, if you're doing new homes, this is actually quite cheap. So I would say each home, your escrow fees total about $200. I have seen in circumstances where this fee became $50 if you're doing a very big home and escrow and the title company gave you a very good deal. So that equal to 7 multiplied by 200. You know, right here, I'm just going to do 1,000, do it this way. And this one will use, it's good to use formulas because when you change something, you can instantaneously automatically change everything else. Okay, so you spend $1,400 on escrows. Okay, let's see. Then we'll think about what other costs we have. So you already built the infrastructure. You already built the houses. You pay the general contractor right here. You pay the city right here. Okay, and you pay the brokers and everybody else. That's pretty much the big items, right? Well, except not, because you have to finance it, right? Unless you're building with cash, you have to get the money that you need to build this thing, right? How much money do we need? Let's say, assuming finance. Okay, that's a big item, right? Total money needed. Well, you need to have the site improvement cost. You need to have the vertical cost. You need to also pay the GCs, and you need to pay the school fees. Total fees equals this multiplied by 7. Okay, so the broker fees, marketing, and escrow closing come out of the closing. So you don't actually need to borrow that money, right? You pay those when the houses are sold. So you don't need to borrow that money from the bank. So you need about $2.156 million to have this project completed in a raw form. Okay, now how much do you have to pay to borrow that $2.156 million? Usually right now, the bank loan rate, you're looking at about 6% if you get it from a traditional bank, or if you're looking at about 10% if you get it from a secondary financing resources, kind of like a hard money lenders or something like that. So I'm going to say assuming 6%. Okay, now there's something called utilization rate, U rate, meaning when you build the houses, you don't take all that $2.156 million up front. You pay the subcontractors as the houses are being completed, right? So you don't borrow, and you only pay interest on the money that you have drawn from the bank. So usually right now we're running about 50 to 60% utilization rate, depends on how fast you can get the houses built. So usually we're talking about a 60% rate, meaning you only add, for the $2.15 million, you're only using that at 60% capacity. Okay, so now let's talk about your total finance cost. The way that you calculate your finance cost is you always have an underwriting fee. Okay, that is for the bank to review it, to process all the paperwork, to qualify the borrowers and everything. That usually runs about 1.5%, equal to 1.5% of the loan amount of this. Okay, so that is your underwriting cost. Plus, let's say this project takes 1 year, right? 1 year at 6% is this amount multiplied by 6% and at a 60% rate, meaning you're only using 60% at a time. So that is your underwriting cost and your interest. Okay, so that number you're spending $110,000 on interest rate. So that is your finance cost. Okay. Now there's a couple of things I kind of wanted to go back to the GC portion, that there's a little things that we kind of forgot. General contractor fee. Now, before that, usually when you run the track home or when you run a bigger project, there's a couple of things that you need to consider. Number one is the Onsite Super. The Onsite Superintendent. Okay, that is the person that's gonna be watching your job site every day, lining up all the trade, making sure all the works are done correctly and according to the government regulation. So a good Onsite Super for a smaller project like this. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I even get into that, there's one very, very, very important thing I need to add to the top. It's a parameter that we need to consider. It's the duration of the project. Okay, this project, if you have the plans, everything approved, you're just gonna go ahead and build it. The actual site improvement will probably take about 3 months, and then your actual building vertical portion, building the houses, probably take you another 5. So I'll say 8 months, plus or minus any raining season or any unforeseeable circumstances. I will say this: anybody should be able to complete this in 1 year. Okay, so I'm assuming this is a 1-year project, which make everything else very simple. So kind of going back to the vertical cost. So Onsite Super, 1 year of Onsite Super probably costs you about $100,000. And any temp items, meaning temporary bathrooms, temporary water sources, temporary power during the construction. Okay, so that is not in the vertical cost, and that is not on the onsite. Let's say you have about another $50,000 for your temp items. So that is pretty much your overall cost. Okay, so general contractor fee, and then your total fee, and then this, I need to add a few more. I need to add the Onsite Super, and I need to add the temp cost. Okay, so this is how much it costs to finance. Okay, this is how much it costs to finance. Give me 1 second. Let me just double check my work. Total price, general contractor fee, city fee, total. This is how much. Broker fee. This is how much you're paying. Total money needed. This is how much money you need. Pretty much all your cost. Okay, and this is your finance cost. Okay, now pretty much now we can arrive to the total cost of your project, which is all the money that you need to build the project plus your finance cost. Okay. Let me move that right here. Total cost of project. Okay, so that I'm gonna X land. Does not include the land. Okay, so this is how much it costs for you to build a project. Okay, now let's talk about a contingency there. I usually do a contingency at 10%. So the total cost multiplied by 10%. That is a contingency. So now total cost plus contingency equals to this plus this. Okay, so the cost of you to build this project is about $2.66 million. Okay, now how much money do you need to make on this? Usually for a project like this, given this is a smaller relatively very good location, right? You only 7 units, you're not flooding the market with a lot of new homes. It's already established community. There's very good demand for people buying in this price range. You're not doing super cheap home, or you're not doing super expensive home. You're doing market rate homes, right? You should not have any problem selling the 7 homes relatively in a short period of time at the right price, right? So there's really little market risk, regardless of how the market fluctuates. This is Pomona. We're not going to San Jacinto. We're not going to Apple Valley, where it's kind of like tertiary market, right? So relatively healthy market. So at that, you can usually people will make 10% out of the selling price. Okay, so that's the project. That's the profit. So profit. You need 10% of the selling price. So you take the selling price, multiply by 10%. That is how much profit you need to make, okay? And profit, can't type today, per unit equals to that divided by 7. So you're making $55,000 per home. Okay, total you're making $385,000 by building the 7 homes. So now, what is your total cost? So now, how much is the land worth? Land worth. So that's the big question, right? So the land worth is how much you can sell the land for, minus how much you can build it for, minus your profit. The land is worth $800,000, right? So that's the maximum price that you can pay for the land and still have this make sense. Okay. Now you want to double check your return, right? Well, let's double check our work through a different method, right? Then what do you want it to look, especially from a developer's perspective? You want it to look on return on equity, ROI. Okay, the way that return on equity is calculated is how much you have to spend, and how much money is that your equity is generating. So easy way is to use your profit, total profit, divide by how much you pay for the project. In most cases, right now, you pay the land price plus some miscellaneous fees, right? Most of your spending are coming from the bank. So that are actually not your equity, right? Right now, very, very simplified formula, your equity is your land price. So that is how much money you're putting up, $800,000, and you're making $385,000. And you're doing that with 1 year divided by your duration, which is 1. So you are making a 48% on your investment because it's 1 year. Now, if the project somehow goes bunker and you're end up spending 2 years, right? Then your Onsite Super becomes 2. Well, actually, your Onsite Super still maintains 1. So then your profitability become 24%. Okay, so your duration, that's what I'm saying. Duration of the project is very, very important. Before you buy a piece of land, before you advise your client to buy a piece of land, you need to know how long does it take from the start to the finish to finish this project, right? So this kind of derives, right? We go from the total selling price and backed out all of the costs that's associated with building the project, right? Finance costs, school fees, vertical costs, site improvement cost, and your selling broker cost, and how much money you need to make, and came out with the land price. That is the safe way to do the land price. Because if you start with the land price, let's say you start with $1 million, a lot of time what you will find is you will find yourself subconsciously tweaking numbers on top to make the project work if you like the project, or to make the project not work if you don't like the project. There's a lot of human factor that end up flowing into it. But this way, you don't know how much the land is supposed to cost, and you go from the top to the bottom and say, hey, this is the maximum price I can pay for the land. So if you know that the owner, the seller for this piece of land is selling this land at $1 million, then he must have, either he's just came out with the numbers anywhere, or he might have different assumptions, right? Let's say you assume your total selling price, instead of $550,000 a unit, you can sell that for $600,000 a unit, right? That's why you have live sheets and use formula, so you can change that one number and you see everything else just changes automatically, right? So you change the price to $600,000, right? So your selling price is at 3.8. Now you can sell this whole thing for 4.2. Well, if that's your assumption, you can pay $1.13 million for the land instead of that $800,000, right? So everything is based on assumptions, and assumptions come from experience, right? That's why a good general contractor, a good developer will price the land in the right way. And sometimes when you're on MLS, you see a piece of land, you say, wow, this land is super cheap. Well, yes, it might be cheap, or if you price it out, maybe there's very high city fees, or maybe the vertical cost is very, very big, right? Either there's not enough dirt, or there's too much dirt you have to export, or there's, like an existing house, you have to spend another $100,000 to demo. So all of those kind of goes into the factor. Today, we're just doing a very, very simplified. I just wanted to go over the process of how you arrive at the land value, right? So that is your assumption. Now, let's look at into how your vertical cost affects this. I'm going to go back to 550,000 just to be on the conservative side, right? So now the land price go back to 798, right? That is how much you can pay to buy this piece of land. Okay, how much you're comfortable paying to buy this piece of land. Now, let's say if your construction cost, this year the lumber went up, the concrete is of a shortage, and a lot of the labors kind of went up because it's hard to get materials. A lot of the materials from China with the war, the economic. Let's say you assume your vertical cost is not $90, it's at $100. Wow, your building cost just went up, right? Now, your land is worth less money than you think because it takes more money to build your vertical houses, okay? So going back to that, it used to be at $1.3 million. Now it costs $1.45 million to build, right? And all that money came out of how much, if you want to keep the same profit, that lowers your land worth. Okay, now in another scenario, we're kind of going back to the $800,000. In another scenario, you think the profit is not the most important thing, whether you wanted to have some experience into the development sector, right? Your client, this is their first time doing this. They don't need a 10% profit. They can do with a much smaller profit. They just want experience, or they think the area is super safe and they wanted to hold the property for a longer time to sell it later. Then let's say my profit, I only need 8%. Okay, now then you can pay more for the land. So that's why this, developing this worksheet, this formula is very, very important. So, how many lines do we have? We have about 50 lines, right? 50 items. This is a very, very simplified performa. Now, if I kind of go to one that I have done before, you have architecture, engineering costs, horizontal costs, site improvement costs, the temporary fence, temporary power, temporary trailer. You have your landscaping costs, everything's into it, right? Your vertical costs, you also break that down into how much you pay for the appliance, how much you pay for the drywall, how much you pay for the flooring. You have your GC cost, depends on, who's your GC. If you're doing this in-house, you're assigning a lower number. You have your general contractor costs, government fees, advertising, you have salary incentive, it's very, very detailed. You have your finance cost, then you arrive at your land cost, and you have a summary of the project. Okay, so this Excel sheet all of a sudden became very, very long, and mine had so many different tabs on the bottom, just each one account for one line item, right? So then you're building a much more comprehensive finance models to have this done. So that is pretty much how you came to assess a land value. I'm gonna stop my screen sharing right now, and then I want to open up for questions and answers. I want to take about 10 to 15 minutes to answer any questions or concerns that you guys have. Okay, so I'm going to be reading off the chat. What is the cost rate of demolition? Are there tax benefits in some cases? Based on what I have seen, if you're demoing about a 2,000 square foot houses, it's safe to budget somewhere about $70,000 to $100,000, depends on the area and depends on the age of the house. You have to go through asbestos testing. It's pretty much required if the house is before a certain time period. I would use about $70,000 for the demo. And that is really case by case. The vertical cost portion is easier because if you know what kind of house you're building, what kind of spec level that you want to use, right? So any house is 2,000 square foot houses selling for $500,000, your vertical cost is very on the ballpark. But demolition and the horizontals, doing the storage water, storm drain, the infrastructure, the horizontal cost, that can vary a lot from project to project. And that is things that you need to find out during the due diligence period. You need to be talking to your civil engineers, talking to the city's engineering department, talking to the city's public work department to find out, roughly how much you need to spend. Do you need to relocate or underground a light pole, right? Do you have to deal with Edison? Do you have to increase the capacity of your sewage or water, right? What is the nearest sewage main or water main connection? How far you have to go to get the water and the sewage? So those are much deeper discussion topics that, if I'm fortunate enough, I can come back and do more seminars. And I would love to talk about those in details. And also how do we do due diligence. I think that's also very, very important. I was kind of debating whether today I wanted to talk about how to do due diligence on behalf of the buyer, or how to do the finance model and arrive at the land price. So I did a seminar for the CACP, the Chinese Association of Builders, Construction Professionals. So we did that, and I did one for another brokerage firm. I forget which one it is. I think it's Remax. I did one for them on how to do due diligence for land development. So maybe I can do one here next time. All right, so that's that question. If you double your project duration, your holding costs will go up a lot, plus a lot more for your super. Your profit can disappear fast. That is absolutely true. In most of the finance models, you absolutely have to account for it, because today we're doing a very simple model. So I'm not really going to much more complicated formulas and how do you assess the value for your opportunity cost, right? And also for your holding costs. So, but those are absolutely correct. You have to consider what is the objective of the buyer? Does he want to buy a project, go in and then out of it in a year, right? Just go build it? Or does he want to buy a piece of land where he had to go through entitlement, spend costs on architecturals, on engineering, on civil engineering, and then build it? Or does your client simply want to buy a piece of land, get entitled, and sell the land and not build it, right? So those are things to consider before you jump into a project. You need to know what you guys are trying to do and really assess the risk that's specific to that portion of the project, and then see your profitability based on that. Okay, so the next one from Daniel Chen. The last one from George. Thank you, George. Daniel Chen. Should we add closing costs such as title, escrow, miscellaneous fees, and duration of the closing escrow days from completion? Okay, so this is a good topic, and it might surprise most of even the brokers. If you're building new homes, your title costs and your broker, your closing costs, your escrow and title costs should be almost zero. Okay, I'm gonna say that one more time. If you're building new homes, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 new homes. If you're building anywhere near like 10 to 20, 30 to 100, 200, your closing costs for title and escrow should be very, very minimal, because number one, the buyer pays for the title cost in the new construction most of the time, and your escrow will give you a new builder discount and asset and put a lot of the fees on the buyer end. So your title and escrow cost should be very, very minimum. Okay, and let's talk about the duration of the construction completion and the duration. Now, for most of the new homes, you want to be selling those homes as soon as you're in construction. Okay, so let's say it take you 5 months to build the homes. You want to be selling the homes in month 1 or month 2, possibly taking the client on the frame walk at month 3, and then do a pre-completion inspection at month 5 or 6. Now, with that said, you should have a buyer locked up in escrow, what do you call it, qualified, ready to close when you get the certificate of occupancy. So there really should be minimum time between finish of construction to close of escrow. Okay, so that is how big builders spin it, because you want to minimize your carrying costs. Your carrying cost is the highest when the homes are already built and sitting there and no one's living in it. Give me 1 second. I need to check one thing. Okay, and I apologize for that. Okay. All right, let me just kind of quickly look at the other questions. UW project duration. Thank you, George. Thank you, Daniel. The next one is from Gloria. Could we have the Excel sheet you use as reference? Yes, you can have my Excel sheet. Actually, matter of fact, I'm gonna have my I wanted to do my email, but I know I'm gonna get like 60 or 80 emails, and I can send you a platform, the Excel sheet with the formulas that I'm using. Sure, I'll share my Excel sheet. The funny thing is, as a GC, my Excel sheet has is very distinctive, because I developed it from ground up based on my previous experiences, and I'm starting to see a lot of other GCs and project managers and using my Excel sheets and kind of start coming back to me, which I thought is pretty funny. I have owners and sending me Excel sheets and, hey, this is the code from another GC. I was, well, that's my Excel sheet. Okay, let me see the next one. Xun Zhang, can we please have a copy of your cost chart? Yes, same thing. We'll do. We'll arrange it with Pauline. She's been super helpful and inviting me to this seminar. It's my honor to be here to talk to you guys and to build an environment where more people are into developing, and the brokers can give more accurate advices to their client. So yes, we'll arrange that through Pauline. Can we please have a copy of Excel? Do you bird dog get the listing for? Do your bird dogs get the listing for finished projects? Jim Vega, I'm not sure what bird dogs mean. Do your bird dogs get a listing? The listing. I'm assuming you're saying whoever is helping the buyer buy the land will get to sell the project. Usually that's the case for smaller project like this, but for a bigger project, especially new development, you need a very, very professional new development sales team. The resale and new development are totally different animals. But if you have the opportunity to help your buyer buy a big project like this, absolutely, you can get you can beef up your personnel, get the professional escrow, Onsite Super, and Onsite sales managers to sell the project. Give me one quick second. I got something. Cities need to answer to the city. Okay, so let's go to the next one. This one is from Miguel. I'm helping some small investor build SFR in the University Health part of LA, next to it, yeah, coast LA. We have made many mistakes along the way. Is there a possibility to get together with you and learn from your next project? Absolutely. You know, we're always here to help. Whatever knowledge that we have, we like to share, and you know, we like the environment to be more professional. You know, there's a lot of GCs out there that have done one home or two homes, but when you go into track homes, it's totally different. You know, we don't want GCs going out there taking money they're not supposed to be taking, making the, you know, hold on. Okay, you know, making the wrong profit margins, and then you know it's just not a good name. It's good, not a good reputation for us. So yes, you know, Pauline will share the my contact information. I'd love to help anyone that needs help. George, based on the past experience, your design will influence your construction a lot. You need to choose the right architect and right designer for the right project. Also need to choose the right contractor. Construction cost quote can vary a lot. Absolutely true, George. I'm assuming you kind of have some kind of development background. I would say about 30 to 40% of your cost has already been decided in your design, if not more, right? What kind of trusses you use, what kind of frame, what kind of spec level that you use. A lot of that, once your design goes to the city, you cannot change it. So you need to be very cautious when you buy a project that already has a design, right? Because then you don't have any say to verify changing any of that, right? Or you can start a project from scratch and then you can design yourself. Then, you know, if you have more experience, then you'll be able to save more money, which end up making more money. Okay, so what city do you mostly build? I mostly build in the Inland Empires, Riverside, Pomona, La Puente, Chino Hills, those kind of areas. I'm having a project I'm having a project in K-Town, which is a very, very different animal. All the costs went up through the roof just because of different locations and different regulations. Will rainy season affect construction time and cost? Not really. We're in California. You're probably talking about 2 weeks of aggregated rain times, and depends on what stage of the building you're in. Once you're roofing once you kind of have your roughs in, then you can work on the inside. So rain in California is actually not too bad. You'll probably add about 2 to 3 weeks or your total construction time if you get to the certain stage during the rain season. Give me one quick second. Okay. Wow, we're getting a lot more new messages, and I kind of have to go at 12 o'clock. Let's do this. Is there any way we can take a screenshot of all this? I think this is recorded, right? So I will get back to all of you guys with the answers, and you guys can send me emails. You know, for all this kind of stuff. I'm just really happy that it's a very big turnout today, and people are so enthusiastic about building. You know, what I want to say is Los Angeles, California, especially Los Angeles in general, there is a big demand for housing, right? I personally like to build for people who need housing, who need, you know, affordable housing, reasonable priced housing. You know, my parents came from a working family. I came from a working family. You know, I don't see the point of building $10 million houses to satisfy one client. What I want to do is build homes that can satisfy many, many clients, people who are police officers, who are teachers at school, who are social workers, you know, who makes a regular income, and you know, two parents hardworking with kids, those people, they need housing, right? So right now they're getting priced out in a lot of the cities. And if you look at Chino Hill, the median housing price, you're talking about for new houses, you're talking about over $500,000. That's the starting price. I mean, how much money do you have to make to, each parents have to make to afford that kind of housing, right? And that's not even that close to LA. So people are getting pushed more and more towards the east into Harupa Valley, into Riverside. I mean, those used to be a different city. Now people are getting over there and driving 45 minutes to an hour so their family can have more space. They can have a backyard and they can have so people are spending a lot more in commute time so their families can live better. And I really think that's a horrible thing, So I wanted to do more communities where people don't have to, sell a kidney to afford their houses. And I kind of urge all of, the people to do that because it's better for the environment, it's better for the community. And you really got to love what you do. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate that this is what I find, what I'm passionate about. I think the satisfaction seeing a community from nothing but dirt to houses, community of houses where, the kids came back from the school playing basketball in the cul-de-sacs and people washing their cars in front, just that's really, really satisfying me. So, I think there's good money in it and it's good reward, not just monetary wise, also for, for your personal improvement, for your spirit and for the society as a general. So, we try to do the best product for the best price range. So that is pretty much it. I'm signing off today. I thank everybody for joining us. And if there is more time in the future, I'll try to be better prepared today. This is a long conversation. I can talk about this all day and we can go into much deeper, more details. And the next time I want to talk about entitlement and what kind of due diligence that you need to advise the buyer on. And then we can talk about the market trend, which most of the brokers I think here probably know that better than I do, but I can kind of provide it from a developer's perspective and how we look at market trend from a developer's perspective instead of a resale perspective. So thank you, everybody. And I'm going to give the mic back to Pauline and Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Vincent. It was a very interesting and informative session. I appreciate you spending the time talking to us. Pauline.
Great. I believe all of you agree with me how exciting class today, right? You need to use your brain and see the calculation and pay more attention for the figures and the titles. And thank you very, very much for Vincent Zhou, this young and talented gentleman, for sharing us so valuable knowledge for how to price a development project and assess land value. And Mr. Lee, thank you for your help for this section. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. We hope to see you soon. And for the next class, on behalf of West and Gabriel Valley Realtors, we would like to thank Mr. Vincent Zhou, CEO of Signature Builder, for your fabulous presentation today. And before the meeting adjourns, I would like to invite all of you to join this Friday, October 30th, our first ever virtual broker symposium from 10 to 12. Mr. Sanjay Vega from CAR, Mr. Ott Carter from CRMRS, and our attorney, Mr. Jim Klinker, to give us the most important 2020 updates during this unprecedented pandemic situation. Let's see you together this Friday from 10 to 12. And if you don't know how to, if you are not our member, just go to WSGVAR our website.com and go to education, click the schedule, and the meeting will pop up for you for your registration. Let's see you together on this Friday, 10 o'clock. And thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Pauline.
Lee, and thank you, Vincent, and thank you all to join today's section. Thank you so much. We see you.
Okay, thank you to all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.